In Management Matters, 50 years of change for the federal government. This month, Federal Times is honoring their own 50-year anniversary and looking back and rolling out a top 10 list of events that shaped government. Joining me with more is Jill Aitoro, editor of Federal Times. Jill, let's set this up. You finished publishing that list on Friday. Each event is accompanied by an article and a video.
Yeah.
How did you condense 50 years of history into 10 moments?
A lot happened in 50 years, Morris. Not easy. First of all, I have to credit an amazing advisory board. We had a dozen former feds that were former DOD, former civilian, that really took the lead in determining what rose to the top. But there were two main criteria that we looked at. One was these had to be historic events that impacted how government operates. So most everybody will recognize these events, and they were important to the U.S. generally speaking. But the importance couldn't just be how they impacted politics or even federal law or America at large. It had to impact government operations, how government is structured, how government is managed. The second criteria was there had to be some trickle-down effect. It couldn't just be important in a moment in time. It had to have subsequent impact for the years and decades after. It's worth noting, for example, we consider the OPM hack on the broader list, but it did not make the final 10 because we don't know yet what the impact will be in the long term. We don't know whether systems will be hacked in government and so forth. So given that fact, it didn't quite rise to the top in terms of the 10. So those were mainly what we looked at in terms of deciding.
All right, let's get right to the fun stuff, the moments themselves.
There is a moment of hope. We watch what's happening in the world of e-commerce, and we want some of that in the government. We have a number of initiatives to create e-business and e-government administrators. We also sort of follow the path of industry, that there's a lot of hope that leads to a lot of hype and then leads to internet bubbles, market valuations that we can't possibly imagine how they existed before, these market capitalizations of companies that don't actually produce things.
All right, that was Dave Wenegren of the Professional Services Council talking about the invention of the World Wide Web. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's worth noting that our 10 list was not ranked, but we did a reader survey, and they did pick invention of World Wide Web as the #1 event in terms of impact on government. But yeah, that made the list because, you know, like its impact on the world, it transformed how government processes function, how government exchanges information. It made it more efficient, but it also changed how government interacts with the citizen in terms of suddenly citizens had different expectations in terms of what they could access, the information they could get their hands on. So that really forced government to transform their messaging, to think really hard about how they share, what they share. And then, of course, I mean, it goes without saying that really the invention of the World Wide Web led to so much else. It really, you could look to the World Wide Web and the internet for cloud computing, for mobility, for even cybersecurity in terms of now having to be concerned about how you share information and who can access it.
Well, even before that, look how it infected the Postal Service. Oh,
yes. I mean, there's some. We talked about the OPM hack. I mean, really, that all tracks back to the internet and networks and, you know, people's ability to access information from all sources, including the federal government. So that was a key one. That almost seemed like a no-brainer.
There's less faxing. You don't send a fax, you send a PDF file. So it's just a lot of ripple effects. All right, here's another excerpt from your series. It features Deloitte's Beth McGrath talking about Hurricane Katrina.
There were many people who historically had kept an eye on, you know, I'll just say the weather and what the impact is nationwide, but when you have something as impactful as, you know, 135-mile-an-hour winds, multi-state potential impact, it was really something that I think many people didn't take seriously at the beginning, and then frankly wish they had.
All right, Jill, how did Hurricane Katrina impact how government operates?
You know, I remember when Hurricane Katrina happened, and I remember being so frustrated in terms of seeing all of those people in such dire straits not able to get help. And what it really showcased was the lack of communication and collaboration between federal government and state and local jurisdictions. They just had not faced this sort of event before that truly tested how they interact. So that was why. I think subsequently, communication collaboration has greatly improved between governments.
So before you go, put all of this whole project into context for us. Why is it important?
You know, there's so much, these are historic events that captured America's attention, but it also, along with the world, transforms the way government manages itself. And you hope that these are lessons learned in some cases that allow them to progress in the right direction. And generally speaking, the good and the bad of these events have allowed government to progress, to be more efficient in terms of how they manage themselves and their resources. So that's why we did the list. And I mean, it's fascinating. I encourage everybody to take a look.
Yeah, you did a great job. I enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Jill Aitoro, editor of Federal Times. See you next time, Jill. Thanks.
Thank you.